Today, we're going to take a look at the wild shape ability in the One D&D playtest material. The stated goal of the designers was to make the Druid class in wild shape specifically simpler. Let's take a look at a quick clip so that we can see exactly what they said.
In actual play, the Druid is the least played class in 5th edition of the classes that are in the player's handbook.
Right.
And a lot of that can be boiled down to the complexity of wild shape.
To understand where we're coming from, we need to understand what people liked about the Druid previously, or what they thought was the most important aspect of it. I took a totally scientific, completely unbiased poll of my YouTube subscribers, and these were the results. About half of the responses stated that the main benefit of wild shape was the utility that comes with the new form. Second was the extra hit points of the animals, and finally the combat capabilities. Let's take a look at a couple of examples of how it plays out differently between 5th edition and One D&D. Suppose a 5th edition level 2 druid has 15 hit points. He takes 8 damage and decides to change into a wolf. Now he has 11 hit points as a wolf. He gets hit for 8 damage again, still a wolf with 3 hit points. Takes a third hit for 8, gets knocked out of wolf form, but is still a druid with 5 hit points left. Now in One D&D, a level 2 druid with 15 hit points gets hit for 8 and changes into a wolf, but only has 7 hit points left due to the changes in the druid. He takes the second hit and transforms back into the druid and is unconscious, down in 2 hits instead of 4, and it gets even worse at higher levels. A level 11 druid would have on average about 87 hit points. In 5th edition, at level 11, that druid could change into an earth elemental with 126 extra hit points that the One D&D druid would never get. If the developers want to keep the hit point issue simple, then my suggestion would be to give the beast form temporary hit points per level of the druid. 7 temporary hit points per level of the druid would give the wild shape form very similar extra hit points to the forms that they had in 5th edition. That would greatly increase the survivability of the druid without adding to the complexity of it. As far as the utility of the wild shape, this has been completely removed from the druid in One D&D. In 5th edition, you could change into a constrictor snake to get the ability to restrain an opponent, or a giant wolf spider to gain the spider climb ability for infiltration, or a panther for the pounce ability. In One D&D, all of these abilities were removed in favor of a simpler stat block. My suggestion for a compromise would be to keep the same generic stat block if you must, but at levels 5, 7, and 9, instead of gaining climbing, aquatic, and flight, you instead get to select from a list of abilities. 1 at level 5, 2 at level 7, and 3 at level 9. These abilities that you get to select from can be all the abilities that were on the beasts previously, like spider climb and an ability to restrain your opponents. This means that you could have an even simpler stat block than now. Right now we have 3 stat blocks. This would give you 1 stat block. However, possible abilities you could get would be flight speed or aquatic abilities. Things that you're gaining on the new forms could just be abilities that you can stack on the base stat block as needed. As far as combat capabilities go, I would think that that is more in the realm of the Circle of the Moon Druid. So I would beef up the abilities that the Circle of the Moon Druid get. Non-Circle of the Moon Druids don't tend to change into their wild shape in order to be useful in combat. So you don't need to have a bunch of extra abilities tied to the wild shape for druids that are not Circle of the Moon. Overall, I don't think that there was a problem with druids being complicated in 5th edition. If you were a brand new player, it might have been a little daunting for a level or so, but then again, you weren't getting access to wild shape at first either. The developers seemed to think the lack of people playing the druid was due to the complexity. But I believe that the main barrier was their usefulness in and out of combat. These changes not only make the druid less useful in combat, but also less useful outside of combat. while the class is simpler, it is not better than it was before. These creatures you see on screen now are all the exact same in One D&D. They have the same stat blocks because there's only one stat block, but obviously they are not equal in abilities or combat prowess. Now, these are just my opinions, and I understand that other people will have different ideas. I'd love to hear about them down in the comments. If you think that the changes are fantastic, let me know. If you have other ideas on ways to fix it, let me know. I tried to not just criticize, but also come up with solutions to the problems while still staying within their design goals overall. And if you're a dungeon master and want some ideas while creating encounters, I have in this playlist a mega dungeon that we are building one day at a time, one encounter per day. So check out the playlist and see all the encounters that we've built so far.